And this did feel very slasher. Pretty much Dracula is Ghostface, stalking and killing off everybody on the ship. But hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I will be reviewing the new horror movie, The Last Voyage of the Demeter, about a crew that is sailing from Romania to London with Dracula in the cargo. Now, this is one of those movies that I was really looking forward to. I was highly anticipating this. I had high hopes, and for me personally, it did not disappoint. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Now, as I keep trying to tell y'all, the best way to go into these movies these days is to go in blind. This is yet another movie where I did not see the preview. I read the synopsis and I just went to see the movie. Now, this is one of those slow burn type of movies. It's a slow burn and it builds well for me. This is kind of a perfect storm meets 30 Days of Night. And while this was a really enjoyable movie for me, there are some frustrations with the story, but nothing major, nothing that ruined my enjoyment of the movie. I will say at 2 hours, it's maybe about 20 minutes too long, but honestly, I did not feel the runtime. I was thoroughly engaged. It wasn't until we got to the end where I was like, okay, yeah, we could have chopped this. We could have took off, about maybe 15-20 minutes. Now, I am not familiar with the story of the Demeter. This is a story from the book of Dracula, I think, just from what I've seen. And I'm not familiar with it. I don't know if that also adds to my enjoyment. However, at the top of the movie, they do start with the end. And I feel like we got a really good intro here. It's nighttime. We have this ship that has come up on shore. And we have this actor. He did so good. I love a movie that has like this bit player actor, this actor with like a little small role that is so memorable and impactful. This guy did so good. It's the guy who comes to tell us he found this ship. It's deserted and everything. And he looked genuinely so scared, and I feel like horror movie acting in particular is very difficult to me because you have to be like frightened and at the height and peak of emotions and fear, and he did so good. So he's trying to tell the person that he went to get, like, I went on board to see if anyone was alive, and the guy's like, well, and I'm saying like, bro, you can kind of deduce ain't nobody alive, but nobody's alive. And the way the guy is like, I can't go back there, sir. I can't go back on that ship. It was so good. Now, we end up finding this captain's log, right? And we're reading through the log, and it says, may God help you because he has forsaken the Demeter. Now, y'all already know, if you're familiar with my channel, I do not like narration. That is just my personal quirk. I really don't like narration. It is extremely rare that I enjoy narration in a movie. And I mean like maybe 1%. Like I may have one day, some time ago, didn't have a problem with it. I'm not going to knock the movie for it though. Because I feel like that's just my personal thing. But when we get this captain's log, that pretty much opens the movie, and we have this narration that the movie starts with. We also have this narration that the movie ends with. That we have the captain who is narrating at the top, and it's the guy from Let Us Pray and Game of Thrones, and he tells us like we're at port and we're picking up cargo and we got to get hands and crew for the ship. And I'm just like, baby, we could see you at port. Like, I don't know. I just never care for narration because I'm just like, babe, you can just, I can see what's happening. Like, you don't have to tell me the ship docked. I see the ship docked. But honestly, it wasn't like as bothersome as the narration at the end of the movie, but whatever. Now, we have the captain who also has his right-hand man, Vorchek, who is an actor that I really enjoyed here because anytime I normally see this guy, he was just in Boston Strangler. He maybe most notably was in The Dark Knight, and he's always kind of like this quirky. I feel like he was very different here. He played a character that I've never personally seen him play before, and I thought that was really good. We're looking for people to be a part of the crew so we can get to London, right? And one of the people that are trying to be a part of the crew is this doctor, this black man named Clemens, who is the kid that played Dr. Dre. And most recently, I saw him in this movie called Survive with this girl from Game of Thrones. And I didn't finish it because it was boring, but he did really well in this movie. This guy, everybody all around in the cast, top tier acting, top tier performances. I thought everybody did superb, but Clemens is trying to be like, I'm a doctor. I can also read the stars if you lose your map, if you lose your compass. And Wojciech checks his hands like, baby, you don't do manual labor. Like, we don't need passengers. We need crew. We need folks that know ships and can help us, sail and get to London. So he ends up picking someone else, right? Now, as they are loading the cargo, we have Toby, which is the kid from Cobweb, which I just reviewed, which I also enjoyed. Not as much as this, but we have that same kid here. And he is the captain's grandson. I just assumed maybe the captain's daughter or son, whichever parent Toby belongs to, was his child, or maybe his child died, and so he's taking care of the grandchild. But he makes a comment later in the movie about his daughter. She's alive. I don't know why he got his grandchild, but whatever the hell, the grandchild here. And we're trying to load the cargo, right? And one of the crew sees this dragon seal, which I would think that Dracula will have a bat for his seal, not a dragon, but whatever the hell. And he gets spooked, and we end up dropping the cargo. And Clemens sees that Toby is about to get demolished, and he swoops in and saves the kid. So where Wojciech and the captain, of course, we go to like yell at the crew guy, but child, it don't even matter because he like, yo, peace out, Godspeed. He don't want to be a part of this. He knows that mark, that symbol. So Clemens ends up being able to take his place. But Wojciech is like, if we find out that you actually don't know, nothing about ships, I'm gonna throw you overboard. And it was a lot in this movie about throwing niggas overboard. Like, we find a stowaway and we're like, throw overboard. I'm just like, is that how we handle stuff? Back in the day, we just threw niggas off the ship because he was pretty much like, we let Poseidon deal with stowaways. But we end up, I was trying to figure out, like I said, I'm not familiar with this story in the slightest. So the people who gave us the cargo, right? We have this main guy who he tells the crew like good luck or whatever on their voyage. And we have a shot of him like watching the ship sail off. And I was trying to figure out, did he set these people up? Did he know that Dracula would kill everybody on the ship? Or was the container sealed and Dracula wasn't supposed to be able to get out, and dropping the container is what like maybe messed up the seal and that's how Dracula got out? No. He set them folks up. He knew they was gonna die. Dracula was supposed to be able to get out. That whole dropping of the cargo, it played no part other than Clemens being able to get on the ship. So yeah, they were set up. But that was what I was trying to figure out initially. So we end up where we're all on the ship, and Toby is showing Clemens around, and we have where Toby is showing Clemens about how you knock at the very top of the ship on the deck, and it can be heard all the way down to the cabin's quarters. And this whole knock thing does come into play in the movie. We go to like meet the cook. We have a dog because, of course, they always have to put a dog in these horror movie situations. They just throw the dog in to die. I mean, that's really just it. That's the only reason the dog is here. And it's so played out for me. Anytime you see a dog in these movies, you just know they're gonna die. Like, it's just so played out. It's so overdone. But Toby also takes Clemens to where all the animals are housed, their livestock. And Toby is responsible for the dog and the animals, right? Now, we end up having it where we all are like on the ship doing our busy work. And of course, we're on the ship, is rocking. Cargo falls, right? And the container breaks. And Clemens goes to check it out because he heard a noise. And y'all, I was so anxious throughout this movie, like just waiting for something to pop out. I was so scared for Clemens when he went into look in the cargo hold, but he ends up finding a woman, and she's not conscious, and the whole crew is upset because apparently a woman on the ship is bad luck. Of course. And again, like I said, they want to just throw it overboard, but Clemens is like, she has an infection and she needs a blood transfusion, which I thought this blood transfusion was pretty odd because I have universal blood, but don't you have to like have the same blood type? But I don't know. It's not a knock to the movie. I mean, it's the 1800s. I don't know if we knew that at the time, but it was still odd because when the captain agrees to let the girl stay on the ship, he tells Clemens, this is your patient, your responsibility. She's going to get half of your rations. So I thought he was going to ask everybody on the ship to donate blood, but he is pretty much just giving her his blood. He gave her a lot of blood, a lot of transfusions, and he wasn't weak, lightheaded, nothing. And he isn't even eating his share. So I don't, whatever. Now nightfall comes and we have someone that has to stay on deck at night, and the guy is looking through his little binocular thingy and he sees Dracula, right? And Clemens is on the deck as well, and it's night, it's dark. They really play with like, wait, did I see? It's something right there, right? So Clemens sees Dracula, but he can't really make out what he saw. And the other guy on the crew feels like he saw Dracula. He feels like evil is on board, right? Now, we end up having all the animals are slaughtered and the dog is killed. And I was very grateful that we did not actually see the dog get killed, but we saw the aftermath of the dog. Now, this movie has some top tier gore. And it's not like a gore fest kind of movie. But the gore we got, the gore lover in me was very impressed. I loved it. When we see the aftermath of the dog, it was so gruesome. When we saw folks like get killed, it was very brutal. Everything looked so good. Now, I was kind of tripping like, how much Dracula need to eat? Because he literally ate all the livestock and the dog in one night. Now, along with when I was talking about, there are a few frustrations. For one, I really enjoyed the character of Clemens. I really like that character. However, I do feel like they made Clemens, they wrote him a little too noble. He felt very sanctimonious. We have a scene where the crew is all eating together and we're talking about this bonus share that we get for getting the cargo to London on time, right? And everyone is talking about what they're going to do with their money. Apparently, this is a lot of money that everyone is going to get. We're going to go to a brothel, etc., etc. And when it gets to Clemens, he's like, what I want most in the world can't be bought. I want to understand the world. And I'm just like, come on now, child. The captain ends up telling him, like, the world doesn't care for sense. It's meant to be understood. Now, it's meant to be experienced, not understood. But I'm just like, baby, everybody's talking about what they're going to do with their money. They're going to go to a brothel. And Clemens got to come in talking about, I want the world to make sense. And then when it comes to when he found the Romanian girl, which she's Romanian, but she speaks perfect English. And she was in good spirits for somebody that was just the in-flight snack for Dracula. But Clemens wants us to dock at the nearest port to get the girl help. And even though he was desperate to get to London, he's willing to get off the ship with her. I don't know. They just wrote him a little too noble for me. and I say too noble because I'm not bothered by someone being like a good person, but I'm bothered when they're so noble they don't feel like a real person. And that's how Clemens was kind of coming across in moments. Now, the first kill was very savage. Oh my Lord. And I'm not like a CGI snob. I will say it has to be some really bad CGI for me to even like give a damn. I will say I do prefer practical effects in my horror movies, not CGI. But I felt like everything was done really well here. And to my uneducated eye, I want to say the only CGI was like when Dracula would fly around and stuff like that. Now, along with my frustrations is the amount of absurdity in Wojciech and the crew ignoring things when it would happen, right? I mean, we got 3 people dead. We got all the animals dead. And we're just ignoring. And the motivation that the movie gives us, the way they try to explain it away is the fact that we're just gung-ho to get to London by the deadline so we can get this extra money, right? Baby, that wasn't good enough. We find the first guy dead. We don't find his body. We just find his knife on the deck and blood. And Wojciech goes to rationalize it by saying, he must have got drunk and fell overboard. Then where the hell blood come from? And one of the crew makes a comment where he sailed with everybody on the ship before except 2 people, which is Clemens and a Romanian girl. So you sailed with this guy before. Does he normally get drunk and just, abscond on his duties? Like, does that sound logical that he just fell overboard but somehow bled first and somehow had his knife pulled out? Like, the length of time they were going, just ignoring, like, bro, 3 people dead, animals is dead. Like, it just did not make any sense at all. And then when we do find the animals dead, and the rationale we use is, the dog must have had rabies. He went rabid and he killed all the other animals. Now, first of all the animals were in cages. And baby, dogs can do a lot, but they cannot open cages. So it just, like, it wasn't, and that was irking me. Like, y'all are full grown, like, mentally together people. Like, does this even make a bit of sense to y'all that the dog went rabid, opened cages, killed all the animals, but then somehow one of the animals killed the dog too, but then that animal was also dead? Like, it just wasn't making any sense. And it felt like we were really stretching plausibility with the way Wojciech and the crew just was just lottie-dottying when niggas was dropping like flies. That was frustrating me to no end. But honestly, I was still enjoying the movie, but it just didn't make any sense. What also didn't make any sense to me was when the Romanian girl wakes up, she immediately bursts out with, "We gotta get off the ship. If he's on the ship, we'll never leave it. We're all gonna die." Baby, ain't nobody listening to her. Not nan person listening to anything she's saying. There were also moments where the captain was like, "Search the whole ship," but nobody ever searched the cargo. It just didn't make any sense to me in the slightest. Also, the girl has healed bite marks all over her, which the doctor didn't notice when he examined her and was giving her blood transfusions. And it's not like they were hidden bites. It was like a bite on her shoulder, a bite on her arm. Like, it ain't like it was on her inner thigh or nothing. I don't know. It just didn't make any sense at all. I just felt like they made the crew just very dense. And then it was frustrating, all the things that we ignored, right? So, for one, we're not listening to the girl, okay? For 2, this monster only comes out at night. And then when the guy who said it's evil on board, when he's attacked, we tie him up And we got a really good scene where he's like, it burns, it burns, it burns. And all of a sudden I'm like, what? But the sun is coming out. I don't know why I didn't think of that. The sun was coming up and he ended up bursting into flames. So this creature only comes out at night. The guy who is infected, pretty much showing the kind of the same symptoms as the girl, bursts into flames, but we do everything at night. And then Clemens and the Romanian girl decide to find where this creature sleeps, right? We find it, and we pretty much don't do anything with that information. We don't do anything with that information. We don't do anything with the sunlight information. That was very frustrating. Now, what I also enjoyed with the movie is, first of all, it's just a very all-around well-made movie. And one thing I loved was certain shots that we got in the movie when the Romanian girl is talking to Clemens and she's saying how, you know, he's on this ship, which means we will never leave it. The way she's like in the camera, the angles we do. There's a moment where we see Dracula on the deck of the ship and it's dark. Well, we see a guy on one of the crew on the deck of the ship. It's dark and then lightning flashes and we see Dracula. The way they shot Dracula, the way he was very animalistic, the angles we would use, I really enjoyed that. And another frustration for me was the fact that we don't know Dracula can fly. We aren't, like I said, using our common sense about the sunlight. But also, the girl from Romania is telling us how Dracula lived in the castle outside of her town her whole life. And I can, deduce that, of course, you wouldn't necessarily know his weaknesses, but you and your town couldn't deduce sunlight was a weakness since he only comes out at night. And I just find it hard to believe that he lived outside of your town for your whole life and no one knows he could fly. I don't know. It's like we really didn't get no information. And it was irking me that every single solitary thing we planned to do, we did it at night. I literally was watching the movie like, what the hell are y'all doing all day? Because y'all don't seem to do anything until it's nighttime. The cook, who is very religious, goes off on everybody. He's like, she's a whore and you're all sinners. And like, first of all, how you know that lady a hoe? But he goes off on his, crazy religious zealot speech. But they was trying to portray him as like a religious maniac, but he was the only person with any common sense for me because he goes onto the deck, knocks the guy out, hits him over the head, and he takes one of the little boats so he can go. And I feel like, baby, that was the smartest move because everybody on the ship getting killed. Yeah, I'm going to take my chances on a little boat. But again, we did it at night. Why didn't we do it in the daytime? We found where he sleeps. Why didn't we, take that out to the sun or put holes so the sun could go in the ship? I don't know. It just felt like we weren't using any information that was being presented to us. Now, we end up where the captain puts Toby into his little captain's room and gives him, a little busy work job. And one of the crew that was attacked by Dracula, of course, turns into a vampire. And the kid ends up leaving out of the locked room. And he ends up going and running into this crew member that is now a vampire, right? And this scene was so good. The kid is like going through like this hallway. And there's like this door where he has to tightly squeeze through. Like the kid can barely fit. So as he's going, I'm thinking, okay, this is probably what's going to save the kid because he can barely squeeze through. But then when he gets attacked and he runs to get through, no. The guy busts through the door, just breaks. Like, he didn't even slow him down. So I was like, oh, goddamn, I thought I was going to save the kid. Now, the door was left open where he was in the cabin's crew. And the kid goes to close the door. He locks it, right? But the guy is like breaking through the door. And the kid goes to use that knock. And they hear it up on deck. And that's when they're like, Toby! So we all running downstairs. Now, the infected crew member is trying to break through the door. He gets a hole through the door. He puts his hand in to like unlock it. And you immediately thinking, because the door was left open, it's like, is Dracula in there? All of a sudden, the guy stops trying to break into the room. And I was confused why Clemens got here like quite a bit of time before everybody else. I was like, where's everybody else? I thought that was kind of odd. But Wojciech ends up subduing the infected crew member. And the captain and Clemens and stuff is trying to get to Toby. And this, again, when I feel like people weren't thinking. We're at the door, banging on the door, yelling Toby. It's a big ass hole. And I'm thinking, why don't nobody try to put their arm, well, the captain, because he's the one at the door. I'm like, why you don't try to put your arm in the door and unlock the door? Why are you just banging on the door, yelling Toby? So then Clemens comes over, and Clemens tries to put his hand in the hole. And I'm just like, why didn't the captain think of that? But Clemens can't reach the lock. And all I can think is, why we don't just try to break the door? Like, everybody just yelling. And then all of a sudden, the Romanian girl comes over and she's like, get out of the way. And she takes the rifle and she shoots the lock and opens the door. And all I could think was, why did it take her to think of this? But y'all, of course, Dracula was in the room. And Toby gets got. And I don't like to see kids get killed. But look at the scenario. Obviously, the kid wasn't going to survive. But I do feel like they didn't go for just complete gratuitous shock. The kid is not killed in a brutal way. Like, everybody was killed. He was like bashing niggas' head on the deck, ripping their throats out. Like, all the kills were brutal. His kill was not brutal. Dracula pretty much just drinks his blood. Which obviously, I'm not saying, oh yeah, this was a great way for the kid to die. But I just mean, like, it wasn't like Alien versus Predator Requiem, where like the damn, spoiler, I guess, if you haven't seen it, sorry. I guess mute for a moment. But it's not like Alien versus Predator Requiem, where they have such, it was just so gratuitous. And like, for me, just shock value, where you have the alien burst through that kid's chest. Like, you literally see the kid like, or with the pregnant women and the babies in the hospital. Like, that's, for me personally, like, bro, you're going too far. So I feel like this was done in a way where it's, you don't give the kid unrealistic plot armor, but you don't go for a complete disgust and shock, for the audience. You do it in a way where the kid in this scenario has to die. But for me, it wasn't gruesome and brutal on the level of the other kills. But then we have a moment where we're up on deck and we're doing like this funeral for the kid, and we have a sheet over the kid, right? All of a sudden, the captain is like, he's not dead, he moved. And of course, we're just thinking he crazy, like, Captain, we're sorry, like, he's dead. The captain, they want to go like throw the kid into the ocean, right? So the captain goes over, pulls the sheet off the kid's face. He looks dead. And it's like, yeah, the captain kind of just losing it. But the kid jumps up like he's not dead. But it's sunlight. So the kid bursts into flames. And the captain ends up getting on fire. And we have to throw the kid in the ocean. I thought that was so freaking good. Usually, I really hate the whole, your loved one get killed and you go crazy. That ish made me so mad. In Walking Dead, again, sorry, spoiler, if you have never seen The Walking Dead, mute me for a moment. It irked me so bad when Rick's wife gets killed and he loses his mind and go back ish crazy. Y'all, that just irks me so bad. Like, Carol's whole daughter got killed and she lose her mind. I don't know. I just feel like whenever stories do that, it be feeling so out there and it be irking me. Like, yes, you could, get a little, but the extent and the dramatics of how they usually portray it irks me. But I actually feel like it worked here. We decide to make this plan of, we're going to abort the ship and we're going to leave Dracula, like, we're going to leave him stranded in the ocean, right? And Clemens goes down to talk to the captain to tell him what they're going to do. The captain goes crazy and is about to shoot and kill Clemens because he's like, no, he killed Toby. He could bring him back. And the captain going crazy when his grandson died makes sense for me and fit well because Dracula be whispering in their ear. Dracula was like whispering in the back. He says in the back of my eyes or something like that. So I feel like that fit here, and it wasn't one of those irksome, like the person go crazy kind of moments. Like the captain goes off the edge for a moment, but it adds up with how Dracula whispers to you and stuff like that. Now, something else that was just a little with the Clemens character is we make the plan that we're going to basically abandon ship, sink the ship or whatever, and Clemens goes to tell Vorchek, and Vorchek is against it. He just keeps saying, this is my home, and this was kind of irking me like my nigga. Everybody dead, we dropping like flies, just get the fuck off the boat. But we're talking about sinking the ship. Vorchek is against it. Clemens, to convince Vorchek to sink the ship, goes into how, you know, he was like the first black what was he? I think, well, basically, I can't remember the exact story, but basically he went to Cambridge, he got educated, he became a doctor, but because he's black, no one would hire him. He ends up getting an offer to go and be the personal doctor for some royalty, but they didn't know he was black until he showed up, and then they didn't want him no more. And important information, I guess, for the character's backstory, but this was just an odd monologue in this moment because, bro, what that got to do with me deciding to sink my home? But I will say, this was an awkward moment, but I like how it adds into Clemens' character motivations for wanting to defeat Dracula. He pretty much goes into, this beast, like the world, has no hold on me. So it goes into his whole sense of his place in the world, how he feels about the world, and how he wants to defeat, you know, not just Dracula, but the symbolism of his world he's in. I will say, I like this movie's approach with this character. One thing that always irks me is when you have the one black character in the movie and it always has to be a racial conflict. Kind of like Jeepers Creepers 2. Like, it feels like the only conflict the movie knows how to create, if it's a black person in the mix of white people, is to throw in racism. That irks me so bad. I hate to see that. And with the movie being a period piece set in the 1800s, I kind of set myself up to be prepared for that. But we actually didn't get that. Clemens is a part of the crew, the only black person. Everybody just treats him like a human being. Like, he's not shunned. There's nothing racist. We have a moment where one of the crew gets mad at him and makes like a racial comment. But it's not this overt like racist tension. He's just treated like a person like everybody else, and that is what I want in these scenarios. That is what usually irks me when they throw in the racial conflict. I just be wanting a black character to just be a real character with a personality and a story that's not tied to them being black, with conflicts amongst the other characters that's not tied to them being black. So that irks me. So, like I said, odd moment for this speech, but I'm fine with it. But I will say, I would have been more happy if we ain't even throw in, because I feel like it's the 1800s. We can kind of deduce that it was probably not easy for you to get an education. And once you did get an education, it was likely not easy for you to get employed. I mean, that's real life history. Like, we can fill in those blanks. So I would have been happier if his race was just not made a thing, right? Like, I'm fine with that one comment from the crew member. People get mad and show their ass. Okay, whatever. But I would have preferred for Clemens to just be a full person and not have to have his motivations or conflicts with others, etc., be tied to him being black. But like I said, I'm happy with the route they went. and I enjoyed his motivation of wanting to defeat Dracula being tied to like a personal conflict he has within the world. I do think that was done well. Now, I will say Clement's motivation of wanting to defeat evil and defeat, the evil that persists as far as his background in the world would have been more impactful for me if he defeated Dracula as opposed to just surviving. But obviously, you're not going to defeat Dracula. And it's an established story. Like I said, this is from a book. So presumably, they didn't take too many liberties, I don't think. But this is also why I feel like we didn't need anything racial to tie this character in with the conflict. Because for me, I'd like that motivation. I'm fine with it, but it would have been more satisfying if he actually defeated the evil. So I feel like we could have just had a different motivation. Fight to survive is good enough motivation for me. Like, we didn't necessarily have to put a personal stake on it. Now we end up making this plan. We have Wojciech, the Romanian girl, two other crew members, and Clemens, right? Now, we're trying to set up this trap, right? And the only thing I could think was, again, my frustration of feeling like they don't be taking information and using it. When they went to tie up their crew member that burst into flames, he was talking about how he could hear everything. He could hear the wind. He could hear your hair blow. Like, he could hear a pin drop. He could hear the island with the ants crawl. Like, he could hear everything. He's infected by this monster. I would be thinking the monster could hear y'all making this motherfucking plan. That's all I could think. So we make this whole plan. We set in this trap. And I'm just like, he could hear everything y'all saying. So we have Wojciech, wait, I think I just said Wojciech, Clem. I think I added up all the people wrong. We have Wojciech and one other crew member, Clemens, and the Romanian girl. And the captain is below deck in his captain's quarters. He wants to go down with the ship. Now, we have this fog that comes through, which I love. I feel like I'm not the biggest fan of period pieces, but my God, I loved how they used everything here. The ship, the fog. It was just such a good setting and atmosphere. I was so immersed in it. It felt creepy. I felt anxious. Loved how the movie played with shadows. Like I said, isolation is definitely top tier scary scenario for me. One location for a movie can be a gamble because it can get tedious. It can become very unexciting, but it worked very well here. It stayed very fresh for me. Now we are setting up this trap. We're on the deck. The captain is down below wanting to go down with the ship. This fog is coming in, and Wojciech and the other crew member is up high on this thing with their guns. Can't see ish because of all the fog. And, oh, y'all, I just thought about something. Pause that. There was a kill in the movie that was my favorite, and it just popped in my head. There is a moment where one of the crew is up on deck at night on watch, and, no, it's two of them. And I was sitting like, dang, it's two people. We still can't survive. We ain't even alone. But he goes to climb up this thing. And I was thinking like, baby, where you going? And Dracula climbs up after him. And the crew member is like, please no. And Dracula's like, please no. Y'all, it was so freaking good. I feel like they did very well making Dracula just very animalistic and prehistoric and creepy. He doesn't really talk. He's not very man-like. He's way more beast than animal-like. But he does say a few things. And I just love when he's like taunting the guy. He's like, please, no. That was so good. But anyway, okay, so we're at the end. We're up high. Wojciech and the other guy, we can't hardly see. Of course, the guy next to Wojciech gets taken out. And I was saying, like, if I'm Wojciech, babe, I'm just start just shooting. Like, I don't care if I can't see. I'm just gonna be shooting. So, and then I was thinking, thinking, because it ends up where Dracula is flying. So at that point, I'm like, babe, I'm just gonna jump and take my chance. I'm just gonna jump. I'm just thinking everything. Clemens gets attacked. He falls down and ends up breaking through like the floor and going through and hurts his leg. He yells up to Clemens them to just go on and do what they gotta do. Now, Clemens tells the Romanian girl to get the lifeboat and whatever you gotta do, cut it, whatever, get it in the water so we can get out of here. Now, of course, we're surprised that Dracula can fly. So just leaving him stranded in the middle of the ocean on the ship, like, that's not a good plan. So Vorchek is down below. He's hurt, and he takes an axe to try and he starts like breaking into the wall of the hull. I can't remember like the technical words for the ship, but so we can sink the ship. And Clemens goes down below looking for Vorchek, but of course Dracula is already down here. Vorchek gets taken out. Clemens is trying to survive. He gets up on deck. The Romanian girl literally disappears for like 10 minutes. I don't know where the hell she went, what the hell she was doing, because we saw the boat was just right there. She didn't get the lifeboat. I don't know what the hell happened to this girl, but she disappeared for like 10 minutes. But the captain comes up on deck, and they have this thing they do where they tie this rope on the steering wheel of the ship, so it can stay straight and ride and do what it's supposed to do, and it don't just go all over the place. So the captain does that. He ties the wheel, but he ties himself to the wheel. He gets attacked by Dracula. Clemens comes, finds the captain, and unties him. But I feel like it would have been a much better idea if we left the captain tied to that steering wheel, and then when we have that group that finds this ship, we would have found the captain dead, tied to that steering wheel. I just feel like that would have been really good. But Clemens gets attacked by Dracula. I love the Clemens Dracula showdown. I love everything Clemens was saying. I love him when he keeps reaffirming, like, I'm not scared of you. I don't fear you. You think you're a god, but you bleed, you feed, you sleep. You know what I mean? Like, you're not a god. It was just so good. It was so exciting. Okay. So Dracula attacks Clemens, and I was annoyed when people kept just getting killed, because I was like, we not even gonna hurt him. Like, we ain't even gonna like do damage to, like, y'all, they couldn't even do no damage to Dracula. So Clemens got the axe, and I'm thinking he gonna at least, get a few hits in. No, baby, Dracula is fast as hell. And he gets Clemens. Now, this didn't make any sense to me. Instead of Dracula just biting Clemens, he takes his nail and cuts Clemens' neck, and then like let the blood drip, and then is about to go bite him, which I was like, baby, your teeth sharp enough. You got them damn sharp teeth. Why you had to cut him with the nail? But anyway, so the Romanian girl pops up, and she is able to hurt Dracula, and Clemens is able to survive, and we end up setting this trap that I did feel like this was a really dumb trap that shouldn't have worked, because Dracula's over there, trying to get Clemens. The Romanian girl is behind Dracula's back, right? She like yells out something. Then she takes the axe and goes to like try to chop and cut this rope. This is taking time. Yelling, breaking a rope, and then this whole little like wooden thing slowly goes and it slams and gets Dracula. And I'm like, baby, that took a lot of time. Dracula could have just moved the hell out of the way. He been moving fast and stealthy as hell, but somehow this slow ass little setup, this slow ass trap got him. Come on now, child. So Clemens and the Romanian girl jumps off the ship. We are on like this like board like piece of the ship that got wrecked and fell down. And of course, as the ship is rocking and moving, Dracula becomes unstuck by this thing. But we have Clemens and the Romanian girl in the water. She's starting to turn into a vampire, and she separates from Clemens and decides to just burn up in the sun, which I don't even know why we went through her like sacrificing to be like she wants to just end it, because Clemens is like, no, I can give another transfusion. They in the middle of the ocean and the sun is rising. She was gonna die either way, whether she wanted to or not. So I don't know why we went through her being like, I'll just end it here. This is my choice. No, baby, they ain't really your choice. You like, either way, you finna die, but you go ahead and choose something that's already chosen for you and you ain't got no other choice. But whatever, girl. We get to the end of the movie, and this is where my enjoyment drops. I feel like we could have left it at either right there when that ocean scene. We already know Dracula got away. Clemens is floating. We could see the land. We know he, is a survivor. Or, so the ending comes. Clemens is in London. I feel like we could have just left it. We have, we don't even need to see Clemens in London for me. We have the scene after the ocean where we have somebody in London we see people in the street. Somebody is selling newspapers. Like, have you heard about the ghost ship? Y'all could end the movie right there. Like, that would have worked. But we end up seeing Clemens in a bar or pub, because it's London. And now this Clemens narration at the end of the movie, like I said, I could tolerate the captain's narration at the top of the movie. The ending narration by Clemens was corny as hell. It was terrible. And he's in the bar and he's drawing a picture of the Romanian girl. What? Like, what are we doing? Like, y'all, this scene took me out. But Clemens is now going to be Blade. Okay? If y'all was wondering what's happening with the new Blade movie, this is the prequel to Blade, apparently, because Cleveland's about to be Van Helsing or something. I don't know, but he is basically out on a mission to get Dracula, right? But he got no weapons and he not prepared. Nigga, when your mission start? Like, because of course Dracula is in the bar and Clemens is shook, scared, shocked to see Dracula, but I'm like, and the way they do this ending feels like a setup, because he sees Dracula. Dracula comes by, touches his neck, leaves out of the bar, right? Clemens follows him out of the bar in the dark. Dracula walking down the street. Baby, this looked like a setup. Like, Dracula getting your ass out the bar and into the dark street so he could kill you in some alley. Like, I just hated this ending. I feel like if we weren't gonna, I really feel like the best ending would have been in the streets of London, seeing the people and them selling a newspaper about, have you heard about the ghost ship? But I also feel like a better ending than what we got would have been just, okay, Clemens is in London and he thinks Dracula is dead, but then he gets terrified to look across the bar and see Dracula. None of this stupid corny ass spiel and speech about how he on a mission for Dracula. None of drawing the Romanian girl. You don't know that bitch? Look, why was he drawing that girl? That was just so weird. But anyway, I did thoroughly enjoy this movie. And I feel like one of the major reasons why I really love this movie, it's a lot of reasons, but was the characters. I feel like we actually got characters that felt like people. They all felt like distinct, characters. I was really engaging with them, and they didn't just feel like fodder for Dracula to kill off, which is a mistake that I feel like a lot of slashers make. And this did feel very slasher. Pretty much Dracula is Ghostface, stalking and killing off everybody on the ship. But I was very engaged with the characters. I actually felt for the characters. I didn't want these characters to die. Like, I felt emotion when they died. And I personally prefer a horror movie experience where I care about the characters. I like for a movie, I don't want to just see a series of things happening. I don't want to just see, sometimes I'm in the mood for gore for the sake of gore, but I don't want to just see people getting killed. Like, I want a movie that is going to elicit feelings from me. And I don't really care for, I don't care about none of the characters, they can all die. Or hating all the characters and you can't wait for them to die. I prefer to feel something for the characters and have a stake in, even though we know anybody gonna survive, but I prefer to have some type of stake in wanting, the characters to live, to survive, not want nothing bad to happen to them. If I don't care about the characters and I'm just waiting for them to die, it's no real stakes for me. I feel like I would give this a solid 6 out of 10. I really want to jump off a cliff and give this like a 6.5, but I'm going to say a solid 6 because it really, really dropped the movie down. We got to that ending. I cannot express how much I hated that ending. I mean, like, it was bad. That whole London scene with Clint, like, I'm talking about, y'all, it was, I will say, I do wish we got more of a psychological horror aspect. I mean, you are in the middle of the ocean with people getting killed off, being stalked by some creature that you don't even really believe in. You're in isolation. You can't, really fight this thing. I feel like it's some psychological aspects we could have explored more. And I will say I really enjoyed the design of Dracula. I like how ancient, barbaric, prehistoric the design of Dracula is. He looks like that earliest form of Dracula, very unman-like for me, which was also shocking when we see him in London, very like less beast, more man, with just like a hat on and a coat, which I feel like I like the Dracula design. I really enjoy it. I wouldn't consider it a scary design just in the face, but the entire monster of Dracula, they were able to play with it and make that scary. His strength, his speed, his stealthiness, there was an intimidation factor, the shark teeth, the way he would move, animalistic, the way you would see him, up like hunched over like an animal, like a beast, and you would see him in the shadows, like the way he was presented to us added to the scariness of the design of Dracula as a whole. And I will say I also enjoy the simplistic, straightforward approach with this story. Is very less is more. It's very that first Alien movie, which Aliens, the sequel is my favorite, but I do really enjoy the first Alien, but it gives me more so that kind of approach to the story as opposed to like the sequel Aliens where it's like action. It's not action and gore fest with this movie. It's very much slow burn, really good build up like that first Alien movie, and the gore and kills and action that we get is very good. Nothing is over the top. I feel like it's just they hit everything perfectly. Top tier acting. Loved all the framing and angles that the director used. And I like how we played with that knocking. We have the kids showing Clemens the knockings at the top. And then we have moments where Dracula uses the knocking to like lure someone to their death. And this is actually also the director that did the Autopsy of Jane Doe, which was also a one location isolated movie that he was able to not make it feel repetitive and played out, which if you haven't seen that one, I suggest that. That was a solid, I would give the Autopsy of Jane Doe a solid 5 out of 10. Average, entertaining, enjoyable movie. I really enjoyed that. I feel like what also added or may have added to my enjoyment of the movie is the fact that I went in not knowing this story. I do not know the story of the Demeter. I've never read the book. So when I first went to see this movie, I just assumed everybody was going to die. I mean, you're on a ship in the middle of the ocean with Dracula. I just was like, nobody going to survive. But the top of the movie also, pretty much reveals the ending for us. But that didn't hurt my enjoyment. We know where it's going to end up, but I enjoyed watching us get there. Now, something else that I did really enjoy is the fact that Clemens survived. Now, like I said, I went into the movie I felt like everybody was gonna die. The movie opens and tells us everybody gonna die. So as the movie is going on, I enjoyed the fact that like, oh shoot, we got a black guy that's one of the last ones standing. But then we get to the very end and it's like, oh shoot, the black guy survived the movie. And I feel like it may not mean much to non-black audiences, but especially as a horror fan, growing up watching horror, still loving horror to this day, horror movies center around white people. I mean, that's just what it is. So I feel like it is such a triumph to have a black character that is using his brain, problem solving, fighting, surviving, survives, is the last one standing. Like, it makes my heart smile. And like I said, that may be something that not everybody can experience, but when you're a fan of horror, everybody that survived be white. Like, it's always the final girls and the men that survive, it's always gonna be a white person. So I enjoy being able to have the few and far between times where we have a black person that survives, and not only survives, but aids in their survival. Like, they're active in their survival. And even though I had quite a few frustrations with the movie and with a lot of stuff we were doing, not paying attention to, not using, Clemens was actively trying to survive and problem solve and figure things out. So I definitely feel like that is kind of a cherry on top of my movie experience with The Last Voyage of the Demeter. But I jumped off a cliff yesterday, because I posted on my community tab that, like, literally the second I walked out of the theater, and I was like, this is my #1 favorite horror movie this year. Okay, I might have jumped off a cliff because I do really love The Evil Dead that came out this year, but this is definitely my top favorite movie overall this year and horror movie this year. Like, but honestly, it wasn't a lot of competition. Not for me personally. There has been horror that I've enjoyed this year, but nothing really knocked my socks off. But I feel like this, I walked out like, wow, like, and I like, y'all, I really enjoyed this. And I can see how, no, I can't. I was finna say I can kind of see how some people wouldn't enjoy this, but I feel like if I can enjoy this, I really feel like most people will, because I'm that person, especially with horror. I'm very much that action-packed, gore fiend type of horror fan, like, but I can also just appreciate a scary story or a creepy story, and that's why I like Cobweb, even though that one had a lot of issues. And I can enjoy this. I feel like this, though, for me, was such a good mix of just giving me a creepy setting and story, but also giving me some really good gore and action. So I just feel like this fit perfectly, and I feel like it has something to offer everyone with whatever type of horror audience you happen to be. Now, the frustrations I mentioned, that could hurt some people's experience more than it hurt mine, because it was kind of some stupid stuff. But it didn't hurt my enjoyment. I was very immersed in this movie. Let me know in the comments, how did you feel about The Last Voyage of the Demeter? Y'all, am I jumping off a cliff saying this is one of the best movies that came out this year so far? Are y'all with me on that? Also, guys, if you did not see my community post, I have officially launched channel memberships. So I am so excited about that. You can check out the memberships to see all of the tiers and everything that I am offering. There are three different tiers, ranging from $2.99 a month to $6.99 a month, depending on which perks you would like to get. Of course, you will continue to get all of the same content that you love from me. The members will just get exclusive content that will not be for the public. And most recently, we will be doing a book review and conversation on one of my favorite books, Cain and Abel by Jeffrey Archer. You will also get a lot of the content a week before it goes public. And there are so many other perks. You can look at the tab and see everything that comes along with the membership. Thank you so much for always supporting my channel. I appreciate the members that have signed up so far. You are truly integral to me being able to fund my love of creating content and bringing you guys my love of movies and acting and horror. Thank you so much. I cannot express how privileged I am to have the members that have signed up. Thank you for always supporting me. I'll see you in the next one.